How are you?
Whiskey?
Which is arthritis tea.
Is Glenn coming? She's coming, yeah? Or no?
Has anyone called and said they weren't coming?
Well, I think we could probably get started.
Okay.
I think we know that Kima has a conflict tonight, so he's not going to be coming. The school board meetings are
Okay. Is it
this
tonight?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Did he win, by the way?
He did.
Yes.
Oh, good,
He came
okay.
in third, and there was another place that opened, so he got that.
Oh,
No, he came in first.
What?
They
'Cause after
finalized the
counted?
count, and he won by 1 vote.
I did not know.
Yes.
so you mean it was like a three-way tie?
Yeah.
Kinda.
It was, well, Lillian definitely was in, and then
It was between his
Jackie
and
and
Kima.
Kima went back and forth, and Kima ended up winning by 1 vote.
So Jackie's
good.
still in though, because there's 3.
Well, they
No.
now have to they'll probably reconfigure it because, just in case anybody's listening, the person who, Kima got appointed to a 2-year term instead of a 4-year term, but now he'll have the 4-year
4-year.
term because he was elected to it, and they have to appoint Jackie to the 2-year term.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I think the third position opened up after the ballot was already
right.
decided upon, so they
Well-
couldn't do it by election, the third position.
Plus, it only was a 2-year term.
Yeah.
Because it's fulfilling the rest of Leo's term. So, so yes, Kima
Good.
won
By 1 point.
by 1 vote.
Wow.
Love
So
that.
just a lesson learned, which I learned all my life. If you live in Brisbane, vote. Every vote
Absolutely.
counts.
All right, we'll get an adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Here comes one.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to public comments, oral communications.
I have a public comment. We're really going to miss Natalie.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Were you going to announce that in
Yeah.
staff updates?
It is still the thunder.
Yeah,
Oh,
not an oral communication, but Natalie's accepted another position, and she's already started. She's just come back tonight to help transition.
Oh.
In the interim, we're going to be having support from Bob Sage from the Public Works Department, who's sitting
Hi.
to my
Hi, Bob Sage. Where are you going, Natalie?
I'm moving on to a consulting firm.
What kind of consulting?
Engineering and environmental.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
we're sorry to see you go.
I thought you were going to tell us you were pregnant.
No.
We are. Maybe we should chat after
Yeah.
the live meeting. Thank you.
But thanks, guys. It's been a great 3 years, and I really enjoyed these meetings and working with you guys. So
Thanks, Natalie. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Okay,
Oh, my.
one
Well,
more,
here.
and we'll have, no, Kima.
Oh,
Kima's not
No,
coming.
you're not going to make it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll wait 1 second, and then we'll go ahead and have Ken give us his presentation.
So Ken Johnson, Senior Planner, is here to talk to us about state building code updates and give some information about what he's going to bring to council in terms of adoption.
Good evening, thank you. Pleasure to be here. I'm going to switch between glasses and not. I broke my usual one, so it's either see the paper or see you. So it'll be blurry for a bit. So the city is in the process of updating its building code adoption chapter contained in Brisbane Municipal Code Chapter 15.04. This is to stay in alignment with the state's update of the California Building Code. I'll refer to the California Building Code as the CBC. The CBC is updated every 3 years, and this 2016 edition will take effect statewide on January 1st. A city council hearing on the ordinance to adopt the CBC is being scheduled for early December. As occurs in every code update cycle, this latest update has implications on a series of city-adopted REACH codes. A REACH code is a local ordinance that exceeds state mandated requirements in specific topic areas. Staff is providing this informational session to update the Open Space and Ecology Committee on the implications of the new CBC edition on our local reach codes. It is not intended to provide a detailed update of all the various changes to the CBC. We also provided a similar update to the Planning Commission at their meeting last week. The City of Brisbane has reach codes for the following topic areas. That's indoor and outdoor water conservation, waste recycling and diversion, green buildings. Additionally, a new energy generation and conservation ordinance is being proposed as a local reach code. The amendment to add a new energy reach code is consistent with the city's climate action plan goal of reducing the city's carbon footprint and to help curb global warming. By way of background on energy, with the previous CBC cycle of 2013, the estimated improvements in building energy efficiencies for new construction were to yield energy use reductions on the order of 25 to 30% over the previous cycle of 2010. Now, this 2016 cycle is estimated to result in new residential buildings that will be 28% less energy usage over the 2013 CBC. So there are already dramatic energy use reductions being realized with each CBC cycle. These code trends reflect the state's goal that all new residential construction will be zero net energy, or ZNE, by 2020, and that non-residential will be ZNE by 2030. To date, energy use reductions are largely borne out by building envelope improvements, HVAC, and lighting efficiencies. And although solar readiness is required in the 2016 CBC, installation of solar on new buildings is not a requirement. With the city's goal in mind as expressed in the CAP, solar energy is an area that is ripe for the city to address through a REACH code. There's one other area I'll touch on that's in this new REACH code. As an aside, I'll note that any local jurisdiction energy code that goes beyond the state mandated minimums must have a cost-effectiveness study completed and approved by the California Energy Commission. Independently undertaking this process can be costly and time-consuming. However, jurisdictions may use other jurisdictions' approved cost-effectiveness study for the same provisions within the same climate zone. At this time, there is one jurisdiction listed with the CEC that is within our climate zone with a cost-effectiveness study approved for an energy reach code, and that's the city of San Mateo. And that provides a good model for Brisbane, actually. It includes cool roof requirements for low-pitched roofs, as well as rooftop solar for both residential and non-residential new construction. These REACH code provisions are fairly straightforward and modest, and further information on that was provided in staff's memo. An ordinance based on San Mateo's model will be presented along with the adoption ordinance for council's consideration then in December. Then on the topic of the green building ordinance, that city REACH code was originally adopted in 2007, and in 2012, City Council directed that this committee and the Planning Commission form a subcommittee to provide recommendations on potential updates. The subcommittee worked from 2012 to 2013 to provide recommendations. However, prior to providing those to Council, the 2013 edition of the CBC surpassed what the subcommittee's recommendations would have done. Ultimately, there were also unresolved questions as to whether an updated green building ordinance would materially be more effective than the updated state codes, and no update to the green building ordinance was recommended at that time. So that 2007 green building ordinance remains in effect in Brisbane. It requires LEED Silver equivalency for non-residential covered projects and build a green rating equivalency for covered residential projects. To date, no projects have actually been built subject to that ordinance, and that's due to the fairly large size thresholds for projects to be considered as a covered project. And although we've had quite a bit of building activity, those tend to be smaller projects. When the CBC adoption ordinance is brought to council in December, council may choose to provide further direction as to whether it would like to revisit the city's green building ordinance. In the meantime, the green building ordinance remains effective and applicable to large residential and non-residential projects in Brisbane. And then on the subject of water conservation, in 2010, the city adopted the water conservation ordinances for both indoor and outdoor water, and that was consistent with the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, otherwise name is called BAUSCA, with their model ordinance. Then in April of last year, in response to the ongoing drought, Governor Brown issued an executive order directing state agencies to implement immediate measures to save water. The Department of Water Resources then adopted the state's model water efficient landscape ordinance, and that became effective statewide last December. And around that same time, BAUSCA provided an update to the regional model ordinance, which again surpassed the state's ordinance. The city refined that ordinance, that regional model, and in early 2016 adopted it, and so the city's existing ordinance already surpasses what the state code requires. Then on the topic of indoor water conservation, as I mentioned, that was adopted in 2010, but with the subsequent building code cycles, those provisions have been met by the state's minimums, and so those are now redundant, and we don't have a regional model at this point anyhow, and so we would be looking at removing that piece from the code. Finally, the city's waste recycling and diversion ordinance surpasses the state's new mandatory requirements in some areas, but not in others, and amendments would be presented to council for consistency. And at the same time, we'd retain those areas that we surpass the state's ordinance. So in closing, this is just an informational session for your consideration. If you have any recommendations that you'd like to pass on to council, you may do so. And just kind of a comment on the energy ordinance. Staff sees this as kind of a starting point, and at any time the city may choose to undertake more stringent requirements, but again, those will be subject to cost effectiveness study. But since we have San Mateo's done, we see that as a good opportunity to go further than we have been. With that, I'll take any questions.
I have questions, Michelle, but I'll let Glenn go first.
I was just going to say, Ken, that it might be helpful to the rest of the committee to hear about the coverage of the state codes, which are actually pretty superior to the Green Building Code in Brisbane. I was actually quite relieved to hear how many, what sort of projects are covered by the state energy ordinance. So I think the committee would be interested in hearing that too.
Yeah, so the city's green building ordinance doesn't apply until you get a residential development of 20 units or more. And so to date, we haven't had projects since 2007 anyhow that are of that size. So it's new construction there, and then commercial is, I believe the starting threshold is 10,000 square feet, in my recollection. And so there has not really been, there's not new construction of commercial that's occurred anywhere close to that size. And actually my recollection is we haven't had new commercial in that time period. So there's, the city ordinance also can apply to remodels as well, but they're major changes, essentially converting, say, a warehouse to an office. That's over 10,000 square feet would apply. So if it was unconditioned space, so it didn't have heating or cooling before, and they were changing it to conditioned space, that's when it applies. The state's ordinance essentially applies to whatever's being touched by the work.
Regardless of size.
Regardless of size. So, for instance, if this room was being remodeled and you're taking out the windows, the new windows would have to comply with the state code for energy efficiency on windows. So, that's kind of the difference there.
So it doesn't apply to residential at all then?
The state's code does,
Okay.
right?
Thanks, Kim.
The state green building code is actually a fairly light read. The energy code is a beast, but the green building code is pretty easy read, and I would recommend you read it if you have like a few minutes. It doesn't take very long to get through. It's good stuff.
So if you come to the building counter sometime, this is the green building or Cal Green part of the state's code. If you're looking at the whole of the state code, it fills a shelf. So,
Yeah.
but this is the piece that Barbara's referring to.
Looks like a couple months reading for me.
It's not hard. The energy code is a real bugaboo. I'm still trying to get through that. I'm doing a second reading of it just because it wouldn't all fit in my head the first time. So I had one question. You mentioned that we didn't have any large commercial buildings, and that building success factors, the new tower down at Bayshore and Sister Cities, that didn't fall under that? Because that's Brisbane, right?
No.
No,
No,
that's
that's-
South
that's-
Oh, I was thinking we wrapped around that little bit.
No.
Nope, and they're about to build a 21-story building there that was already approved, and they
Yeah.
just, tomorrow night at the Planning Commission, they want to approve, instead of the 2-story building that was approved, a 7-story amenity hotel that goes there as well.
Where is this going to go?
You know where the Success Factors building is?
Yeah.
2 buildings next to it, to the north of it.
Yeah.
So that's on the Brisbane?
No,
No, it's
still in South
South
San Francisco.
I thought we wrapped around, but no, apparently not.
So the
I'm
border
mistaken.
of the city on the south side runs essentially in line with the edge of Sierra Point and then across the highway, and then it wraps up. But it's very close.
Very close. Okay, I was mistaken.
So there's no, danger of the state repealing any of these and then leaving us without coverage, is there?
I think it's going the other direction. As I mentioned, the state has a mandate to get to residential ZNE net zero energy by 2020 and commercial by 2030. They're still not there, so they're going to get more and more strict.
So you don't think that'll change with the current political climate, that we should continue to have our own ordinance that is equal to or greater than the state ordinance?
Well, each state has the right to have stricter rules on such things than federal government, and so I don't see this changing with the new administration at the federal level.
Okay. Just worries me.
Yes.
So at the Climate Action Plan meeting, I understood you to say, Ken, that if we wanted to recommend mandatory installation of electric car charging facilities, that this would be a good time to do it. Am I right about that?
So yes, if you wanted to recommend that, it wouldn't be that it would be included in this short order, but it would be something that to request of council to essentially direct staff and perhaps a subcommittee, like possibly how we did before with the Planning Commission and Open Space and Ecology, look at that again and come back with something. The risk is you take too long, and then you're up against the next code cycle, and then you're
Right.
maybe a moot point, and all that work is for naught. Another alternative is possibly to look at what other cities are doing once other cities have gone a little bit further too. At this point, there's not a whole lot out there. There was just San Mateo. I understand Portola Valley is also working on something, but it might be that we can tag on to somebody else's work, and that's it's okay in government to do that and save time and resources.
So that would also have to have, an ordinance requiring electric car charging stations would also have to have that study done on it, right?
Right. So I understand Portola Valley is exploring that, and so if they have that cost-effectiveness study, that might be something to tag on to later, but it's not out at this time.
Is there anybody else, I mean, maybe RICAPS would know if there's anything else that anybody else is working on? Is it just San Mateo and Portola Valley?
Well, so I spoke with the Energy Commission about a week and a half ago to quiz them, because I was only seeing on their website that San Mateo was the only one in our climate zone that had the cost-effectiveness study done, and they'd responded that they didn't have anything yet at that point from Portola Valley. So,
And there's nobody else?
and they didn't have anybody else at that
Seems
point.
so thin. Okay.
Would it be anybody in California or just in our area?
It'll be all right.
It would be within our climate zone, so it's essentially runs down the peninsula 4 ways along the coast side, so you get further inland and you get warmer climate, and so it's essentially the moderate climate zone.
So it's the USDA climate zones?
Um,
Obviously not the Sunset Magazine.
no, these are Energy Commission listed climate zones, and where they get their source, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about Alameda? I mean,
Alameda, I don't believe is the same.
because they've got that all done over there.
It's not in our climate zone, Alameda?
I don't believe so.
Share a border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got car charging stations over there?
Absolutely.
Can we check on that?
So this
I was there like 2 weekends ago.
This would be something that if your committee wanted to look into further, and you could come back later with something to City Council at any time as a request to reopen if you saw something out there that applied. But there's a certain urgency. We need to get this ordinance to adopt the CBC before the council in December. The CBC becomes effective statewide regardless of whether we adopt or not. It'll be effective January 1st, but the city also has an obligation to enforce the CBC, and that's where it gets the rubber meets the road, essentially, is that we have enforcement provisions within our code that if we don't adopt, it puts that into question. So this is something that we need to get to council, but as I mentioned, at any time, if the committee has something that it wants to recommend to council, it could be a couple of weeks later, it could be a month later, but if you have a burning desire to have something else added to the what we're proposing at this time, then that's
I thought putting in the circuit for a car charger was mandatory, and I don't remember where I got that from.
So for new construction,
Yeah.
you do, on single-family residences,
Yeah.
you do have to have it EV ready,
Yeah.
but not completely installed, so that
Well, that's,
Essentially, the idea,
makes
I think, is that whoever owns the house, if they have a car, it's going to be a fairly cheap and easy thing to finish that out. So the chases are there, the capacity, the electrical capacity is there.
that makes perfect sense.
Right. And then as you get into multifamily, actually, a certain percentage of EV spaces are actually required,
Okay.
and also for commercial. So the green building ordinance as a mandatory level does have some EV requirements already built in.
That's sure. I had one other question. Under the new non-residential buildings, there's no cool roof provisions. There's no exemption for PV as there is under low-rise residential and the other various categories. And I'm just wondering why the PV exemption was not included in the new non-residential buildings.
Are you talking about what the ordinance that's based on the San Mateo model or on?
Yeah, it was attachment A, summary of preliminary draft key provisions for Brisbane New Energy Code Conservation, which I believe was based on the San Mateo.
So I'm sorry, if you could repeat your question, what you're
Okay,
asking.
so, sorry, page 5, item 1, under new non-residential buildings. There are 2 exemptions listed, whereas most, some of these others have, it seems like all the other sections include an exemption for integrated solar panels. And there's no exemption under new non-residential buildings for solar panels.
Right, so if
And I'm
we
just
have,
wondering why it's not uniform and consistent.
that's a good point, and so essentially, to have that area of the roof that is covered by solar not have to be a cool roof.
Yeah.
And I would say that would be a reduction in the stringency, if you will, of the code, and so we could make that modification as an exception.
Yeah,
Without having to go back to a cost-effectiveness study.
Yeah.
If we go stricter, then that's where we run up against cost-effectiveness study issues, but I think we could, it seems like a fair point.
Yeah, I would like to hear what my other committee members, I just thought that perhaps that the use of that exemption might give the businesses one more reason to go ahead and install solar panels or perhaps a larger system. So what does everybody think about that?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, if it's in one.
Okay. All right, well, I think we can
Good point.
probably, I think if anybody suddenly thinks of some reason that it's a bad idea, they can email staff and email us and let us know, but I think we should at least consider that.
Right, see what the reasoning was.
We could follow up
Also-
with San Mateo.
Pardon?
We could follow up with San Mateo.
Yeah, and maybe they had a good reason for not doing it. I don't know. I can't think of
I could look
everything.
into that further, but my thinking is that we could take that and integrate it and bring it forward.
Great. Also, I was thinking, this doesn't specify what's happening with mixed use. And I was thinking, in my mind, if it's cost-effective for the residential side and it's cost-effective for the commercial side, then the requirements should be cumulative. So if the commercial is required to put on, 3 kilowatts, and the residential is required to put on 1 kilowatt, and then you've got a mixed-use building, then it should be 4 kilowatt hours.
Right.
And I would hope that San Mateo's cost study would bear that out and that we wouldn't have to do a whole lot of additional work. Because it seems, at least in my mind, that's just a simple sum.
I'll look back at San Mateo's cost-effectiveness study and see how that was addressed. I don't recall seeing it there, but
Yeah.
and it might be something that, you could do one of two ways, as you suggest, or you could just take the more stringent of the two and say it's not additive, but we'll make you do, if you have a tiny office space and more residential, the residential would apply. But I'll look into that some more.
Yeah, I think more is generally better in these cases. I was also a little curious about the multi-family buildings of 3 to 16. So without a single-family home or duplex is 1 kilowatt. Okay, that's not very much. Fine, whatever. We can be happy with that. Although the cost-effectiveness study bears it out through 2 kilowatts and doesn't seem like it starts to. It's still a good deal at 3 kilowatts, but the cost-benefit ratio is 3.9 for both the 1 and 2 kilowatt system. But I don't feel I need to quibble over that. Where I do start to feel a little bit like quibbling is when you start into getting larger, like 3 and 16 unit buildings have 2 kilowatt systems. And I just remember being at the San Mateo sustainability something or another a couple years back, and everybody was applauding for this like benchmarking building that had provided enough solar for the hallway lighting. Right. And that was a little like pick me up off the floor.
Yeah, it's a good point, and as I mentioned, this is modest, and I kind of see it as a gateway. If you're looking at a new construction and you're having to talk to a solar or several solar companies, for most people are going to get bids from different ones. I see this as that gateway to, okay, you have to do a minimal amount, so you're going to be talking to solar people, and it opens the door to, okay, here's the minimum, but what really makes sense for our particular case. Yeah. And so that's how I saw it, as it's an open door, essentially.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that your point is extremely valid. And I do think that if they start talking to solar providers, then there's a good opportunity that they might be able to upsell them on a more practical size system. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like maybe it's a little disproportionate that we're asking duplexes to put in 1 kilowatt hour and a 17 unit building to put in 3. There's not. Right. Yeah. So I just wanted us to think about that and maybe see if San Mateo's data is, because I don't think we need to start wrestling tar babies here, especially given our timeline. But if the data happens to be there that is already substantiates maybe a slightly 4 kilowatt system for a 17 unit building, something just a little larger, it would make me feel better if we, if it's not, it's not.
I have a thought. I wonder if that has to do with just the energy in the common areas, because each unit is going to have its own meter. How do you share that savings between?
That's
perhaps that might be the issue that they were confronting in this. That's a good
haven't
point,
really
Karen.
figured out how to slice up, which maybe we can scratch our heads on it.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my thought about that. Yeah, I think that was all I had for that. Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I do have a question. How likely is it that we'll be able to get this to be applied to projects that have already had a development agreement? There's a huge amount out on Sierra Point.
Right. So there's a couple sites with development agreements on them. You have Opus Office, and then the HCP, which is the biotech campus that was approved several years ago on the south shore of Sierra Point. Those development agreements run for a certain length of time.
Very long time.
Right. And so those are essentially, as the name implies, it's an agreement, and so at the time, there are certain things that they gave up in exchange for, without getting into the details, which I wouldn't be able to remember anyway. But so both of those, as I recall, exceeded, although I think one of them was before our green building ordinance, if not both of them, they were around that same time that the green building ordinance went into effect. They exceed what we even require. So they'd go at least, well, even today, so lead silver as a minimum, and I think it went beyond even that, but I'd have to look at the development agreements. And there, yeah, for commercial, it gets a little, I've heard the arguments pro and con over time here with the different ones that come through, and I think a lot of the improvements are really borne out through glazing and through HVAC, and there's a limited amount of roof space, but I don't want to be like the cold water here splashing on this thing, but it's for the development agreements, those are a locked-in agreement that I don't see unraveling if they run their time and come back then to City Council. That would be the time to essentially bring that back forward and try to catch it up.
So there's no way in this adoption of these that we could ask for that to cover buildings that have not begun being built?
So for a city reach code, no, but they have to comply with whatever the state building code is at the time that they pull their permits. So the longer they wait, the more stringent they're going to have it anyway. And actually, I mentioned lead silver, that is trying to keep out ahead of the state anyway. So what they agreed to in 2007 or whenever is when they finally build, because they're going to be at least 10 years later at this point, is going to be more energy efficient than what they were thinking even back then. It may not include solar, but there will be other things that they will have to do to comply with the current code in effect at the time of the building permit.
And they don't have an open building permit?
They do not. Neither of those sites do.
Okay. Is there anyone else who does that we should be concerned with?
Those are the only two that have a development agreement that I am. Let me think here. Actually, there's a 30-unit condo, the Ing condo complex that is along Bay Shore, and they are working on a building permit application currently.
But it hasn't been submitted or accepted yet. So.
Well, it hasn't been completed. It's been submitted, and there's been delays, and so they're just like the others. They have the current code to comply with, but there's on that one, it's a stipulated judgment because there was a lawsuit on that particular case. So they have some other issues there that limit essentially what the city can do and what they can do.
Okay. Is there any stipulation on what level of remodel triggers this?
Triggers which?
The green building ordinance or the state.
Right. So the state Cal Green would apply to, essentially it applies to what you're touching. There are certain site requirements that it would apply just to new construction, but there's other things that would apply to current construction that's being remodeled.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just want to confirm that we'll maybe follow up on adding the PV exemption to new non-residential buildings. And does everybody else feel that what is the committee's feeling on having commercial and residential PV requirements be cumulative rather than,
Definitely,
If we can get away with it.
assuming they have roof space, right?
yeah.
And there is,
Okay.
there is essentially a hardship exemption built into this. So if they don't have roof space, that's something that on a case-by-case basis we'd look at if they applied for a hardship.
Or if they're, completely in the shadow of something else, it doesn't,
Right, right.
it doesn't make sense. But as long as it makes sense, I'd like to see it be cumulative.
Okay.
As long as we can do that without a new study.
Yeah, I'll look at San Mateo's study and see how, or if they addressed it, and if I don't see a conflict, we'll carry that recommendation forward to
Yeah.
City Council.
I mean, even if we have to, it would be perhaps it would be at council's discretion, but if it was a matter of adding just a small amount of money or material to the existing study, then I would feel good about Brisbane contributing to this, this REACH code in some way. I don't know if council would be interested. I'm not, like I said, I'm not interested in taking on a whole new area, but I don't think we have time or resources for that. But if it was just a matter, if they hadn't done answered that particular question, they could do, the consultant who worked on this for San Mateo could answer it for, a little packet and.
Well, but Ken's
Maybe.
bringing this to council in early December, so it's either done and it's in
Okay.
for what he's doing,
Right.
or we have to look at it separately.
Okay,
And try to
then that doesn't work,
It's-
which is a pity. Hopefully it's already done.
Yeah, so the effective date of the ordinance, you can't essentially have an effective date before the cost effectiveness study was done. So if we can't apply that now, it would be something to add on later.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Before we get on with the approval of the minutes, should we ask our guest for if they'd like to speak? We don't have guests very often, so I thought I'd give you the opportunity if you have something you'd like to address to us. Okay, very good.
But I did think of something.
No, you don't count. You're not a guest.
We will have chair and committee member matters,
It's not, it's oral communications.
but oral
We already
communication
passed
is
that.
technically for the public, and your
Yeah.
Pushing it.
committee member matters are.
Come on, hurry up. spit it
Okay,
out.
San Bernardino Mountain Lodge Mission Blue Nursery is having their plant sale on December 3rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Saturday, December 3rd, plant sale, native plant sale. That's it.
Very good.
That was a public service announcement.
Yeah.
Is it on the website?
Yes, and it is on our website.
Okay, so we can post it to other places. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
mountwatch.org.
Okay, thank you.
And so we can move on to the approval of the minutes.
I have questions. I don't know if it's so much approval of the minutes, but there are things in here that are sort of open-ended.
Approval of the minutes are the minutes reflective of what happened at the last meeting, and then chair and committee member matters bring up items that you want to have staff respond to or agendize going forward.
Okay, so, all right, it's just, there was things in them that I wasn't sure if the council actually gave us direction on or not. They were just kind of left in the air. When I read the minutes, it looks like they're left in the air, but it seemed to me that it was a little more definitive than that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to
go
say,
ahead.
Michelle.
So we can move on to chair and committee matters, and you can say what you'd like to say.
Oh, okay.
Michelle's point is related to the minutes. right?
Yeah, either way, then
Either or.
if you want clarification on what's in the minutes, then that seems relevant.
Yeah, under the revisit the open space plan, I guess it just says staff will provide proposal for council's review. Is that where we left it then? Okay, never mind. All right. I had questions, but I can ask them under the other part.
Well, I mean, I think if the questions are about the minutes, we should address it under minute.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
Okay.
I'm
You don't want the
misreading
minutes
that.
to be changed.
No,
Right.
I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure that it was
Okay.
complete. Sorry.
So the chair is asking for a motion to adopt the minutes?
If I must.
I
There-
so move.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And not? Moving right along. So I think this is the area where you could ask your questions, right?
Yeah. I just had questions. So in here, we were, so we need to work on the invasive species ordinance to give, or draft a according to this, O'Connell indicated that OSEC should come up with a plan for the council to review. So that's not on our agenda to start reviewing or,
And did we talked about having a subcommittee work on that. It's kind of been pretty effective to have a couple members work on something and then bring it back to the full OSEC to comment, review, adopt, or recommend to council, approve and recommend to council.
okay, it just wasn't in the minutes that we had decided on a subcommittee, so I wanted us to do that.
Let's,
And then also, is there going to be a subcommittee about revisiting the open space plan or how we're going to do that?
I don't know if I said I think I did mention the last time I'd been in touch with a consultant who had put together the first study, and they're available and get a scope from them and bring that to council. And that's what I think the next step is on that.
Okay, well, I kind of would like to participate in that and discuss that with them in terms of widening the criteria and reexamining some of the acres.
Yeah, definitely, we're going to have to be recommending what criteria are changed to expand it.
Yeah, so I don't want them to do that in isolation. I would like to sit down and chat with them about that.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that may mold what their scope is and what their fee is, but I'll make that first contact, then they'll report back.
Okay.
Maybe that we hire them and then some of the open space members are on a subcommittee that works with them.
Okay.
That could work.
And then the invasive species ordinance subcommittee.
Yeah, so who wants to work on a subcommittee on the invasive species ordinance, sounds like?
I will. Who else wants to work with me?
I can work on that too.
Okay.
I can help when needed, but
Yeah, we'll be coming to you, you know that.
Oh, so Michelle, not an official subcommittee
Unofficial.
member on it?
unofficial. I'm trying not to take on more than I can handle, and I have already done that.
And I just want to issue the caveat that Natalie was half to 2/3 time, and we'll be putting out an advertisement for a replacement, but we're going to be a little bit slower for a few months while that happens. Bob's going to help run the meetings and do the agendas, but he doesn't have the amount of time. He's already doing a bunch of other things in public works, so he doesn't have the amount of time that Natalie has, so. And it just got me for a little while.
Okay.
That's okay. I'm not at that ambitious this time of year anyway. I've got the holidays. I think we are all okay to take a little breather. I know I'm at least speaking for myself. And Glenn over here is
Yeah, I
not
appreciate
too.
that. Okay.
So, do you have any idea when the posting will be out?
I can give you an update, but not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
So the other thing is there was that we went over with council liaison different items that had gotten stalled out over time, such as the
two items on the list.
Yeah.
You have.
I'm sorry. I really am tired tonight.
So we forwarded those to the liaisons, Natalie did. That was the interior courtyards count as lot coverage in the Brisbane Acres
Right.
zoning regulations, and that residential lots or new construction be 50, besides the building footprint and the area needed for parking and driveways, be 50% landscaped. So we forwarded that back to the two liaisons.
It wasn't just new construction, was it?
Yeah.
It was?
You can't really impose a landscape requirement on construction. I mean, what were you thinking, remodels or?
Well, we'll have to talk about that more, because I thought we were going to try and hit everybody not to pave over their entire yard.
Yeah, but you can't really do that through ordinance, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think you can do that retroactively.
But with remodels, you could, because most of the remodels include adding floor area ratio to, I mean, I've never seen a remodel where they've made the house smaller, okay? Let's be honest here. There are some gigantic houses in Brisbane now,
Yeah, how many cottages have been turned into,
gigantic houses. I mean, don't we have a floor area ratio that we're supposed to meet with these things?
yeah, but it's pretty generous.
I think that needs to be looked at. It's a little too generous. I mean, there is like.
Okay, I can't do all of that, though. I can only do a few things, so.
Okay.
Oh, just let us meander for a minute, and we'll come back to you with what we do want to do.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that it's something that we should look at because.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Planning Commission is considering looking at that, so if you want to go talk to the Planning Commission, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support.
Okay. Because it's out of hand.
Yeah.
You know, these monster houses with like 3 feet around them, you know, of lot, and that's it. And giant 4-story, 3-story houses.
Are you referring to the new development on the ridge or Central Brisbane? Like which
Central Brisbane,
Central Brisbane? Oh.
yeah. The new development on the ridge, that's done. That's dead to me.
That's
Oh.
dead to me.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, there have been a couple that are just, like 3 stories stepping back, and they've got the minimum, which is, I think, 3 or 5 feet on the sides and 15 foot in the back, and the rest of it's just
Not even.
house.
Yeah.
Has there been a rule or law
There
that
is.
they can and cannot do, and they're just not
Have we changed it or?
I believe it's 2/3 lot coverage.
2/3?
2/3.
I think that I talked with, too bad Ken has left, but I think we talked about this a bit, and the R1, R2, and the R3 are different, and one of them was 40, one of them was 50, and one of them was 60%.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's my recollection.
Yeah, some of these, I mean, maybe it's visually deceptive, but some of these look like they're a lot more than 60%.
Yeah.
Just looking at them, just looking at the mass of the house compared to what's left, it feels like they're covering more like 80% of it.
Yeah, is it footprint or is it actual floor area?
So,
I thought you would be familiar with knowing about the interior courtyards.
That was in the acres, and
It's
at the
going to
time.
be whatever has a
studied
roof
it.
over the top of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Only the roof? I
Pretty
mean,
much.
because how high can you go?
Well, there are height limits, too.
37.5 feet, I believe.
Is it
Yeah.
that high? I thought it was 32.
Could be wrong.
I thought it was 35.
See, we don't know. Maybe Ken should come back and present to us again.
Okay, not to leave.
And then the list of items, and then were we going to take action on asking for no littering and no dumping signs at the exit, Sierra Point exit from the freeway? We talked about it, but then we didn't do anything.
Yeah, I didn't do anything because I'm not sure if that's on UPC's property or our property, and I've kind of let that one slide, but I did make a note before this meeting to look into,
I don't really care whose property it is. We need to put a sign up.
well, right, if it's their property, we would ask them to put a sign up, and it's ours.
Well, they should also get the one sign that is over there on Tunnel Road heading out of town, and they should frame that. Thing's got to be antique.
Yeah.
It's a $500 fine for littering.
And how much for the?
That was from like the 70s, 60s maybe even.
And how much for
Very old.
defacing the sign? It can't be from
Oh,
the
yeah.
60s because it would have sunk by now.
You
All right,
Long-
sorry.
Did we have our NIPD's regional compliance person talk to us about trash capture devices and all of that? I know he talked to the Complete Streets Committee, but that might be something to have come in, and that's not related, but he's also responsible for as being responsible for trash, he kind of deals a lot with dumping and where trash is left. And he said that area was relatively not as bad as a lot of other spots that are his focus, so might be something to have him come.
Which
talk to
area?
us.
Tunnel
The
or
one- Yeah, the Sierra Point off-ramp at one.
the Sierra Point
at
off-ramp?
1-1.
That's because he hasn't picked up bags and bags of pee and garbage there like I have, and it's disgusting. And you see people stop there all the time. I mean, it's gross. Within a week or 2 weeks after working so hard to clean that up area up, it
You
was
come back and
it
it's
was
just filled.
filled again. It's like some kind of truck pit
Dump.
stop dump.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why it's attractive for that. It's kind of isolated and
Put a sign, porta potty, 50 yards down the road or whatever.
We just put a porta potty there.
Yeah, it's so gross. Okay, that was all my BITCHing. Told you I was crabby tonight.
All right, chair and committee matters. It came up on the screen. It's ready to go.
Don't you?
Uh-oh.
All right, who's going to take this bad boy home?
Why? For one of us to use?
Yeah.
It's the trial.
Yep.
we have a couple of things we can add to it, and the coupons aren't in there, nor the waiver, but if somebody wants to try it out in its draft form, that's fine, they could bring it
I'll take it in December.
again.
Anybody before
I'd
that?
love to take it in December. That'd be cool.
I can take it now. Like,
I'm not sure I want to know.
Camila?
Yeah, I don't want to know
Here
yet.
you go, Camila.
So you can go through. It's really cool.
I already know what's wrong with my house.
I might be very sad once I do, but no, actually.
Give us the constructive criticism. We have managed to launch.
Hey.
Yay!
About our Christmas tree? Is it this we're here?
Well, we have,
Matters? Matters?
that's, oh yeah, subcommittees, oh, I guess what, it's subcommittees now. So, yeah, sure, Christmas trees, we haven't met.
But we did.
We did, well,
We've
spoke, and
we've
had
collected
conversations.
information, so if you'd like to share some of your information, I can share some of mine, give you some ideas about what I've been hearing.
Shall I?
Sean, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Sean, it was funny, because she gave me Sean's number, and he didn't talk to me. He just called Michelle. I said, hi, Michelle told me to call. Yeah, I'll talk to Michelle. So,
So Sean gave us some ideas, and he reiterated about having to build a mound to build on, to plant on, so that, and sort of gave a couple of ideas, and I looked them up on the internet, and, basically, we need a conifer that can grow without good drainage in a clay soil, and that looks good and can stand up to wind and weather.
there you go. That's all.
And that's all. And so Megan and I we were going to take a field trip, which we haven't done yet because it turned out it was pumpkin weekend. There was a tree forest, Christmas tree forest, called Creekside Tree Farm down on La Honda Road, where they had planted all kinds of different trees there, 3 primary species, and just let them grow in a forest setting, and people could come and cut their own tree. And the people who ran it retired, and so that's not a open tree lot anymore, or tree. They weren't planted in rows. They just grew however they would grow. And we were thinking about going down there and taking a look at what they have growing there and seeing how well they've done, because it's similar conditions of, a lot of wind coming off the ocean, sort of a, same climate, not great drainage there, because it would be muddy sometimes. And actually going and taking a little field trip and looking to see pictures of what trees grew well and did well in that environment. I think they had noble firs and some other kinds of firs. So we had kind of a little list that we had worked on. So so we did some. We did some.
And, yeah, and so there's actually an app you can download and take a picture of the plant and a tree or whatever, and it tells you what kind it is, so
Cool.
I downloaded that.
Yeah.
So
And they had
that's-
3 species they primarily planted there, but there was others too, so.
And then Michael had.
Okay, so
another-
we have a conifer specialist who works in town, but he's exceptionally busy and doesn't have time for us, essentially. So I did pick his brain a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I don't know and don't think he's going to be very willing to work with us unless perhaps we're hiring him. That said, what he did say is that the best tree to plant at the park is a deodar cedar, which is what's planted there. The problem with the tree that's planted there is it's not planted right. Okay, so essentially what Sean, you said his name is Sean, is saying about planting it on a mound, it seems to be a potential thing for fixing this problem. So I spent a lot of time calling local nurseries, going to the nurseries and talking to the nurseries and getting some ideas. They're not conifer specialists. It's questionable at best. The information I'm getting is what they think to be best. So I got a list of different trees that would grow in this area. I also went online and did some research online, and they have lists of trees that will grow on the coast of California, but different parts, not necessarily, they don't say anything about Brisbane. So taking the information that I've gotten and looking and then walking the site where the tree is and stepping back and looking at what's going on there, 2 things came to me right away. First off, it was the day of the pumpkin patch, and I was hanging out with the Lions Club, as is pretty common. And I looked over at the tree because Tim Chang was there, and we were talking about it. And he likes the cedar as well. And we were both looking at it. I go, look how low that tree is. That tree is 4 feet below the height of the gazebo. I mean, it's a big drop. I mean, and all the water runs off the park right to that tree. The other problem is that the tree is the first tree in a line of trees. So when the wind hits it, it's the first thing that is. It's the first tree. It's the first wind block that it's going to get. There's no other type of wind block, so it's going to lose branches. Pardon me, on the windward side. So I don't know really how that could possibly be fixed. I mean, there's always, if it's one of the tallest trees, it's always going to be the first tree to get hit with wind.
But some trees are better able to resist that than others, and that's why we thought to go
Yeah.
look at the trees.
Yep.
We just go look and see what
Absolutely.
hasn't worked down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I looked all over town, and guess what just so happens to grow really good in Brisbane? Deodar cedar. Everywhere, except for where that one's planted in the park.
Yeah,
So I really think that if we set up a better
drainage.
planting situation, environment for it, lifting on a mound, making sure it gets drained really well, then I think it would do a lot better. But the wind, I don't know that you can fix that. And I did look at a whole bunch of other trees. I'll just go down the list because it's a short list. There's a Virginia pine, Engelmann spruce, a white spruce, Norway spruce, and then I found a couple off the Central Coast site, which is a Santa Lucia fir, which is these are rare trees actually. They're not very common, and a coastal Douglas fir, a common tree. The only problem with most of these trees is these become, if they do grow well, they become monsters. I mean, we're talking,
100-foot trees.
yeah, big trees. I don't know how you're going to decorate something with a cherry picker that goes up 40, 50 feet. The
Paid Tim
trees.
a lot of money.
Tim's not going to do that. Anyway, so those were the things I found out.
Is there any way to move it, move the location of the tree so it doesn't get buffeted so much by the wind? Because I think you're right, any tree that's just like out there is going to get blown on. It's going to affect the way any tree grows. It may not affect the survival of the tree, but it'll affect its looks.
The only thing I thought of, and I don't know how feasible it is, would be to plant several trees that grow as tall as whatever we choose that we plant in front.
Maybe like poplars or something, the tall, skinny things, or ash that aren't going to compete with it visually, but get tall and
Anything that
it's a
you
thought.
plant near it that it will be tall will have a visual impact on it.
But at least it wouldn't be directly competing visually. You're right. It is gonna have a visual impact, but
It will, yeah.
But if it's the only conifer, then maybe it can still kind of stand out. I don't know.
Is that the only place in the park that it can go?
Trying to think where in the park would be more wind, sheltered from the wind, and it seems like that whole park being open the way it is
Yeah, the farmer's market vendors really get clobbered.
yeah.
Yeah, when it's windy there, it's windy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. It wouldn't be, probably if you did, it wouldn't be in that park. It would have to be somewhere else.
I wonder if you put it, is there any
Behind
room over
the-
closer to the buildings where it
Well,
would be?
the one spot,
Really do it. It's
just off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but I don't know
I
how
agree with
the
you.
city would like to do something like this,
That's
but it would be behind the bathrooms.
So central.
There's a bunch of established trees there, and if you went behind them, there's a picnic area in the back there. But again, that's
That's-
going to cut away from the Christmas celebration.
And also just the way that tree looks
could work.
where it is when
Yeah.
it's lit up in the
Perfect.
at
It's
holiday
really the
times.
perfect
Right.
location.
Yeah.
I think
And
so.
I really think what Michael discussed was putting it up, putting in the mound, getting it. You and I might still want to take that drive down and check to see if
You might
there's
want to
a
go with
double
us.
tree.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
do
Yeah.
a road trip.
Yeah.
And then, same
Megan,
area or after or
Can you
something.
try to use a mic?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I really like what Michael had said before, planting it, we'll maybe go take a road trip, look at the different trees that are down there, look at other ones that get beat up, and maybe find the perfect tree for that location, but it's the perfect location at the park. And we can try to move it, same thing's going to happen.
And you lose the effect of having it kind of at the entrance to town,
Right.
Exactly, and it's,
which then would be, we'd have to
Kind of defeats
have
the
other
purpose.
people
it
involved.
totally defeats the purpose and exactly the location, so, yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that. We have to do that in December then, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Hit San Gregorio after?
Don't know anything about it.
Well, you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. Still subcommittee reports on my screen.
Any others?
Any other subcommittees?
So the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee met, actually, a severely truncated Climate Action Plan Subcommittee met last Thursday. Barbara couldn't come, so it was me and Karen and Natalie and Ken, and kind of went over some of the same stuff that we've talked about tonight, and didn't do a whole lot else. We need to work on the energy disclosure and upgrade ordinance, but I haven't had any time to work on it, so there we are.
I think the only thing we did recently was Natalie came up with some little stickers for us for the science fair projects that are not necessarily the warlords, but for people's projects that are resource conscious in their construction.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
a good category.
So, because you know how kids' school projects always end up, incorporating a lot of non-renewable resources. So,
Like styrofoam?
like styrofoam and plastic and rubber, and then it makes it, so we just thought we'd have stickers for people's projects that can be made from renewable materials. So just another way to give kids a thumbs up.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Great.
Did you find the eco version of those stickers, Natalie? Good. All right, we're set then.
And just the last thing is that Natalie did a few climate facts. We're up maybe 5, but that may be something that lags unless Glenn finds the inspiration to write a few. We may put it on hiatus for a little while. We would explain why and just try to limit that amount of time that it was on hiatus.
I'd like to thank Natalie again for bringing the climate facts. She took over about number 26 or something. I don't remember, but she's been doing a fine job.
Thank you, Natalie.
And Mrs. Natalie? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
You may not miss the commute.
It ended at 50, so that's kind of a good number to end at if you have to.
That's good.
I think we could recycle some of them, as I said at the CAP meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think community members, with all due respect, are reading them so closely that they would remember.
Number 1.
Yeah?
We'd probably hear from a few people, but,
Pardon me?
we'd probably hear from a few people, but we could try.
I would love to, actually. It'd be a good test on whether they're actually getting read or not.
Yeah. That's good.
Right.
So what are you going to be doing at your new consulting job, Natalie?
Working on environmental documentation and being support for project managers. So, yeah.
Good. Kind of similar to what we have got you doing, in a different way.
Okay, where are we? Let's move
We're
along.
at staff updates.
Oh, we had just ruined that.
Yeah.
If Natalie had any updates, she said they're wiped from her memory, so, we talked a little bit about, yeah, I don't know if we updated you. Did you send that out? The municipal greenhouse gas inventory, was done for 2015.
Oh,
And we were down another 30%. Since 2005, the numbers are down 47%.
Wow.
Wow.
And I think that's, did we make that
I
a
think you mentioned that at the CAP meeting.
yeah, I don't think
Right.
I've heard that. Let's
Yeah.
all like give ourselves a little pat on the back here.
You know, if we
Well,
keep doing that, the rest of the country won't need to worry about reducing its emissions. We'll
We can
just
do that.
take care
Oh,
of it.
yeah. 'Cause
Yeah, right, because we're just on such a great
Huge,
course
such a
right now.
huge, yeah.
So there's also the RICAPS committee, CCAG committee, and their consultant help us with the community greenhouse gas inventory. But there's they talked a little bit about a new CPUC data privacy rule that may not allow PG&E to give them that data to be able to calculate community greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, I've
So-
heard about this.
Yeah, so we're on hold with regard to 2015, and the RICAPS group is working actively on letting the CPUC, I don't think that was the intent of the rule, but that's kind of the impact, so they're working through that, and Brisbane made the comment that, we'll write in your letter or support whatever action, but it's still in the beginning stages of trying to figure out what's going on with that.
So there isn't any way they can scrub it so that it's anonymous and so they can use it? That's really a shame.
I think that they could combine the different subcategories.
Okay.
So commercial, industrial, and whatever all the subcategories are that I don't
Seems ridiculous.
recall, and give us all that data together, which wouldn't be as refined as it was before.
Oh, that's too bad.
Still, I'll update you guys. We're still waiting to
Yeah.
hear where that's going. The county has been working on an open data portal, so it's in a really draft form. They're hoping to publish something, but they have one website like they have now. They have their open data portal for a lot of the county activities for energy and greenhouse gas emissions, and they have it kind of set up that every city would have a link and would have our data there, kind of these
Oh, that would be good.
types of things. It's kind of moving slowly, but they're at the point that they're asking for staff feedback. There was an interesting presentation from an organization, CO2, Community Climate Solutions, that was a engagement tool that they're kicking off in Fremont and Palo Alto. It might be a nice thing to talk to the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee about. It's pretty cool, and it might be something we'd want to look into a little bit.
Yeah, send us a link.
And those are probably the highlights from the meeting, I would say. Home Energy Score Working Group. That wasn't the most productive meeting. We both sat in on that. It was a phone call, and it was still kind of, this is the Bayran and Stop Waste group, working with the staff throughout the Bay Area, and there's still people coming in that are trying to learn what everyone else is doing and what the options are, so it didn't really move us forward. It kind of works with our building energy saving ordinance, but it's a resource for us, but that particular meeting didn't necessarily move us forward very much. I think that's all I have.
At the last meeting, I asked if you could find the information on the 2 Brisbane acres that were missing from the report, which was number 80 and 81. Were you able to find that?
I saw that note and I didn't take good enough notes on that, so why don't I look into that and send that as an email?
Okay, because they're missing from, it must have just been an error when they printed it, but I just don't want to forget to get that information. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask if the committee was okay with not meeting on December 20th, just because it's so close to Christmas, and having less staff, and just having the next meeting be in January.
I think that makes sense.
It's fine, fine with me.
What date?
So-
Yeah, what's the
January.
date?
So we talked about the fourth Wednesday so that we can get, well, that one,
Changed.
Natalie did a survey and that got us the most participation. I know Wednesdays are not ideal for some people, but we'd get Kima back to these meetings. So it was January 25th that we're tentatively, the room scheduled. And we'd talked about doing it then.
I'm good with that date at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Fine with
Okay.
me.
All right, so some of these smaller items I'll update by email since we're not going to meet in December. And
Bob, don't be slacking off just because we're not meeting in December, okay?
He's like,
Yeah.
He's going to work extra hard to get
I
something
I
tired.
wouldn't say you're getting rusty around the group you normally work with, Public Works. I mean, they'll get some WD-40.
same about setting up the televising the meetings. Sorry about that, Bob.
So can I get a motion for adjournment?
You
Motion
should come
to,
and set it up on December 20th, just for practice.
just for practice.
Because that's when you forget, it's when you're
he's like,
learning a new skill.
"Phew, I don't have to do anything else."
I so move.
Ah, there we go. Can I get a
All
second?
right, I'll second. My God, you guys.
All those
are
in
such a rush
favor?
to get on here.
Hey, opposed?
So
And Natalie, truly, thank you
You
again
aren't-
for your work.
Aren't you
Oh,
having fun?
Thank
how
you.
did you go?
luck. Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
happy holidays.
Tell us when you're pregnant.
Maybe she believes in, population control as well as climate control.